A crime lord's daughter spat on the black, made before the Mafia boss publicly cut ties with their entire family. Maya Johnson stood quietly in the grand hall of the Granger family mansion, her hands trembling slightly as she straightened the edge of her apron. She had been working here for over a year now, silently and without complaint, moving through the sprawling estate like a shadow. It wasn't that she minded the work. Cleaning up after people was what she had done most of her life. What bothered her were the stares, the whispers, and the blatant disrespect that came from those she served. Today was no different. Charlotte Granger, the daughter of the crime lord, sat at the center of the room, surrounded by her friends, laughing and enjoying their extravagant dinner. Maya could feel the heat of Charlotte's gaze as she walked past, the smug look on her face making Maya's stomach churn. Charlotte had always been cruel, always found some way to make Maya feel less than human. But today, it went further. As Maya passed by, Charlotte suddenly stood up, her voice rising above the chatter. "What are you looking at, you filthy maid?" she sneered, her eyes cold and calculating. Maya froze, her heart sinking as all eyes turned toward her. She had become used to the insults, but there was something different about today. The entire room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Maya to respond, to react. But she didn't. She knew better. If she kept her head down, if she stayed quiet, maybe they would forget about her. But Charlotte wasn't done. The next moment, Charlotte spat on the floor in front of her, her eyes gleaming with malice. The room went silent. Maya felt the sting of humiliation flood through her. Her mind screamed for her to fight back, to say something, but she remained still. It was the only way to survive in this world. Keep quiet, keep moving, and never show weakness. But just as the tension in the room reached its peak, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway. Maya's eyes flicked toward the door. Dominic Romano, the Mafia boss, stepped into the room. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Dominic was a man known for his power, his presence, and the icy calm that surrounded him. His gaze swept over the room, landing on Charlotte and the group of friends who had been enjoying their meal. The air seemed to crackle with tension as he took in the scene before him. He said nothing, his eyes hard and unreadable, but everyone in the room knew better than to speak. After a long moment, Dominic's voice broke the silence. "This ends now," he said, his tone low but filled with authority. He turned to Charlotte, his gaze unwavering. "You and your entire family are no longer welcome here." Charlotte's eyes widened in shock, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to comprehend what was happening. "You can't do this," she protested, her voice shaky. "I'm your daughter." But Dominic's expression remained cold. "Not anymore." With those simple words, he turned and walked toward Maya, his eyes softening for the first time since entering the room. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Maya, still in shock, could barely find her voice as she nodded slowly. The tension in the room melted away, and for the first time, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The powerful Mafia boss had just cut ties with his own family to protect her. It was a moment of redemption, one that she never could have expected. But it was a moment that would change both their lives forever. The room was still silent, but the weight of the moment lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. Dominic Romano, the powerful Mafia boss who had just cut ties with his own family to protect Maya, stood before her. His presence was commanding, but his gaze softened as he met her eyes. Maya still stood frozen in place, her mind racing. She had never expected this. She had never expected anyone, especially someone as ruthless as Dominic, to stand up for her. Her hands were still trembling, and her heart was racing, but she knew she had to say something. I'm okay," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. Dominic studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he turned and walked to the far end of the room, his boots clicking against the marble floor. The guests, still in shock, exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do next. The tension was palpable, but no one dared to speak. "Maya," Dominic called over his shoulder, his voice calm yet firm. "Come with me." Maya hesitated for a moment, but then, as if her body had a mind of its own, she followed him. She walked past the stunned guests, feeling their eyes on her as she moved. She had been humiliated just moments ago, but now, as she walked beside Dominic, it felt as if the world had shifted. She was no longer invisible. She was no longer the maid in the background. The hallway was dimly lit, the walls lined with expensive artwork and marble statues. It was a far cry from the cramped apartment she had once lived in, the one where she had struggled to make ends meet. But it was a different kind of struggle now, a struggle that she never could have anticipated. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" Dominic asked as they reached a private sitting room. He gestured for her to sit on the leather sofa. Maya glanced at the plush seating, hesitating for just a moment before she took a seat. She looked down at her hands, unsure of how to begin. She had always been a quiet person, a person who kept her head down and did her job without drawing attention. But now, here she was, sitting in front of the most powerful man in the city, the man who could have anyone killed with a single word. She spat on me," Maya began, her voice trembling slightly. "Charlotte, she just spat on me. In front of everyone." Dominic remained silent, his eyes locked on hers, giving her the space to speak. "I don't know why," Maya continued, her eyes welling up with tears. "She always treated me like I was nothing. But today was different." Dominic leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "You did nothing wrong," he said softly, but with an undeniable authority. "You didn't deserve any of it." Maya wiped away a tear, but she couldn't bring herself to speak. She wasn't used to hearing words like that. She wasn't used to being told that she didn't deserve the way people treated her. Dominic's gaze softened, and he leaned back in his chair. "I know what it's like," he said quietly. "To feel powerless. To feel like no one sees you. But that's not who you are. You're more than that." Maya looked up at him, surprised by the gentleness in his voice. This was a side of him she hadn't expected, a side that, until now, she had only heard rumors about. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice shaky. Dominic nodded. "No one should ever treat you like that. And I won't allow it to happen again." Maya swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion. She had never expected this moment, never thought that someone like Dominic Romano would care about her. But here he was, offering her something she had longed for her entire life: dignity. "I want you to stay," Dominic said, breaking the silence. "I'll make sure you're taken care of. You don't have to go back to that place." Maya shook her head, unable to believe what she was hearing. But I don't belong here. I'm just a maid." Dominic's eyes hardened slightly. "You're not just anything. You're a person who deserves respect. And I won't let anyone treat you like that again. Not while I'm here." Maya's heart swelled with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. She had always been taught to stay in her place, to know her worth based on her job, her skin color, and her background. But Dominic was offering her something else, something more. "You don't have to keep hiding," he said. "You don't have to keep being the invisible one." Maya looked up at him, unsure of how to respond. She had never been seen this way, not by anyone, not even by the people who claimed to love her. But here, in this room, with Dominic sitting across from her, she felt something shift. It was as if she had been holding her breath her entire life, and now, for the first time, she could exhale. "I don't know what to say," Maya admitted softly. Dominic smiled, though it wasn't a smile she had expected. It was soft, understanding, almost like he had been waiting for her to see it too. "You don't have to say anything," he said. "You don't need to prove anything. Just be you." For the first time in a long time, Maya felt like she could breathe again. She didn't know what the future held, but for now, in this moment, she felt like she was finally seen, finally valued. "I never imagined that one decision, one moment, could change the course of my life forever," Maya thought as she sat in the small, luxurious office Dominic had led her to. The soft light from the large window reflected off the polished wood of the desk in front of her. She had expected to be in trouble, or perhaps even thrown out, but instead, she was sitting here, in a space that screamed power and wealth, with Dominic Romano, the most powerful man in the city. It was surreal, almost impossible to believe. Just a few hours ago, she had been the invisible maid, humiliated in front of strangers, and now here she was, being treated like someone who mattered. Dominic had made it clear that he would not tolerate what happened to her, but Maya couldn't help but feel like she was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Maya." Dominic's voice broke through her thoughts, calm and steady. He was sitting behind the desk, his eyes locked on hers. "I know this is a lot to process, but I want you to understand that I won't let anything happen to you. You're safe here." Maya nodded slowly, still processing his words. Safe. That word sounded so foreign to her. She had never felt safe, not in her entire life. The weight of her past, the constant struggle, the fear of being overlooked, had always been a part of her reality. But now, it was like a new door had opened, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to step through it. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Dominic leaned forward slightly, his gaze softening. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that from now on, you will be treated with the respect you deserve. No more hiding." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She had never heard anyone speak to her like that before. She had always kept her head down, lived quietly in the shadows, and accepted the way things were. But Dominic was offering her something she never thought she'd have: dignity. I don't know if I can believe it," Maya admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "All my life, I've been told I'm just a maid. I never thought I'd be worth anything more." Dominic's expression hardened slightly, his jaw tightening. "You are more than just a maid. You are a person with value, and I won't let anyone forget that." Maya looked down at her hands, unsure of how to process the words. She had been so used to being invisible, so used to being treated like she didn't matter. It was hard to imagine a life where that wasn't the case. I don't know how to act in this world," Maya said softly, almost to herself. Dominic stood up and walked over to her, his footsteps echoing in the quiet room. He stopped just a few feet away, his presence overwhelming but not intimidating. "You don't have to act. Just be yourself," he said, his voice soft but filled with conviction. "You deserve to be here. You deserve to be seen." Maya felt a lump form in her throat as she looked up at him. She could hardly believe what he was saying. It felt like a dream, something she might wake up from at any moment. But I'm not like you. I don't have the power, the wealth," Maya whispered, shaking her head. Dominic smiled slightly, though it was a rare expression for him. "Power and wealth don't define a person, Maya. What defines you is your strength, your character, the way you've managed to hold your head up despite everything. That's what matters." Maya took a deep breath, the weight of his words settling on her chest. She had never seen herself as strong, but maybe, just maybe, Dominic was right. Maybe she had been strong all along. "What do I do now?" Maya asked, her voice full of uncertainty. Dominic regarded her for a moment before answering. "First, I want you to stop thinking of yourself as just a maid. You're not. Second, I want you to understand that this is a new chapter for you. You're not alone anymore." Maya's eyes widened slightly. "Alone?" she asked, almost laughing at the thought. She had always been alone, always had to depend on herself. "You've been alone for too long," Dominic replied quietly. "But now, I'm here. I'm offering you a place here, a chance to be something more." Maya didn't know how to respond to that. She felt overwhelmed, like the weight of the world had been lifted off her shoulders and replaced with something equally heavy: hope. "I don't know what the future holds, but I'm willing to find out," Maya said, her voice steady for the first time. Dominic smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Good. That's the first step." As Maya sat there, in the luxurious office, with Dominic standing beside her, she realized something. This was the moment her life had changed. She wasn't the maid in the background anymore. She was Maya, a person with a future, with worth. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally in control of her own destiny. It had been 2 weeks since that night, the night that had changed everything for Maya. She still couldn't believe it. She had spent years in the background, always invisible, always quiet. And now, here she was, living in a world she never thought she'd be a part of. Dominic had kept his word. He had provided her with a place to stay, a small but comfortable apartment in a building just outside the heart of the city. It was far from the luxurious penthouse that Dominic lived in, but it was hers. And that, in itself, felt like a dream come true. Maya stood by the window, looking out at the city below. The lights flickered in the distance, a world full of possibilities she had never imagined for herself. She had always been content with her small, modest life. But now, it felt like the world was opening up, and she had no idea what to do with it. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Startled, Maya quickly turned and walked over to open it. Standing in the doorway was Dominic, his presence as commanding as ever. But today, there was something different about him. He wasn't wearing his usual suit and tie. Instead, he was dressed casually, jeans and a t-shirt, a look that made him seem more human, somehow. "Hey," he said, offering her a small smile. "Can I come in?" Maya stepped aside, letting him into the apartment. She had gotten used to seeing him in his professional role as the Mafia boss, but seeing him like this, relaxed, almost normal, was strange. Of course, she replied, a bit surprised by his unexpected visit. Dominic glanced around the small space, his eyes scanning the simple furniture, the bare walls. It's not much, Maya said quietly, feeling a bit self-conscious. But it's mine. Dominic nodded, his eyes softening. It's perfect. And it's yours, he repeated, as if reminding her of something important. Maya didn't know what to say to that. She had never thought about it in those terms before. Her life had always been about getting by, surviving, not about having a place to call her own. But now, with Dominic's words, she was starting to see things differently. I came by to check on you, Dominic said, breaking her train of thought. I wanted to make sure you're doing okay. I know it's a big adjustment. Maya smiled faintly, though she still felt unsure of herself. I'm fine. It's a lot to take in. Dominic walked over to the couch and sat down, motioning for her to join him. I get it, he said, his voice calm. It's not easy, especially when you're used to being invisible. But you don't have to hide anymore, Maya. You can be whoever you want to be. His words struck something deep inside her. She had spent so long being invisible, so long blending into the background, that she didn't even know who she was without that. She had never allowed herself to dream, to think beyond the next paycheck or the next meal. I don't know how to be anyone else, she confessed, her voice small. Dominic looked at her with understanding, his expression serious. You don't have to be anyone else. Just be yourself. You're already enough. Maya felt a lump form in her throat, and for a moment, she was afraid she might start crying. She had never heard anyone say anything like that to her. Her entire life, she had been told to stay in her place, to know her role, to be content with what she had. But here was Dominic, telling her she was enough, just as she was. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Dominic smiled warmly, his gaze never leaving hers. You don't have to thank me. You deserve this. You deserve more than this, actually. Maya felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She didn't know how to express it, how to put into words the way he was making her feel. It was as if, for the first time in her life, someone saw her. Really saw her. Not just as a maid or a servant, but as a person. I don't know what comes next, Maya said softly, sitting down beside him. But I want to find out. Dominic looked at her, his expression thoughtful. You don't have to have it all figured out right away. Just take it one step at a time. I'll be here to help you along the way. Maya nodded, feeling a sense of calm settle over her. She still didn't know exactly what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she had the power to choose it. For the first time, she felt like she had a chance at something more. I'm not used to this, Maya admitted, her voice shaky. I've spent so long thinking I wasn't worth anything. Dominic turned toward her, his face softening. You are worth everything. And you always have been. Maya's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him, his words sinking in. She wasn't sure what the future would hold, but she knew one thing for sure. It was hers to decide. With Dominic's support, for the first time in her life, Maya felt like she could start living for herself. She was no longer invisible. She was finally seen. And that made all the difference. It had been a month since Maya's life had changed in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. Every day felt like a new chapter, and every decision she made felt monumental. It was a far cry from the quiet, predictable life she once lived as a maid. Now, she found herself standing in a world of opportunity, and although the shift was overwhelming, she couldn't deny that it felt right. Dominic had kept his promise. He'd offered her a new life, a life where she could step out of the shadows and into the light. But the adjustment wasn't easy. Some nights, Maya would lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was worthy of everything she was being given. The words Dominic had said to her kept echoing in her mind. You're more than this. It was hard for her to internalize them. She had been taught her entire life to stay in her place, to know her role. But here she was, in a spacious apartment, away from the shadows, and for the first time, she had choices. The thought was both liberating and terrifying. As she sat at her small kitchen table one evening, sipping on a cup of coffee, she heard a knock on the door. Maya wasn't expecting anyone. She stood up hesitantly, wondering who it could be. When she opened the door, she was surprised to see Dominic standing there once again, this time with a warm, inviting smile on his face. "Hey, Maya," he greeted her, his voice soft but filled with an underlying sense of purpose. "Mind if I come in?" Maya stepped aside, her heart racing with the sudden appearance of the man who had turned her life upside down in the best way possible. She had gotten used to his presence, but each time he showed up, it felt like something new, something powerful. "Of course," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "What brings you here?" Dominic didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked past her and glanced around her apartment, taking in the simplicity of the space. It was small, but it was hers. "I just wanted to check in on you," he said after a moment, looking at her with a mixture of concern and care. "Make sure you're doing okay." Maya smiled softly, though there was a hint of uncertainty in her eyes. "I'm fine," she said, though she wasn't sure if she truly believed it. "It's just all a little overwhelming sometimes." Dominic's gaze softened as he took a step closer to her. "I understand," he said quietly. "It's a lot to process, I know, but you're handling it better than most people would." Maya shook her head, a small laugh escaping her lips. "I'm just trying to keep up. I've never been in a situation like this before." Dominic smiled, his expression lightening a little. "That's okay. You don't have to have everything figured out right away." He paused, his eyes locking with hers, serious now. "But I want you to know something. You're not alone in this. I've got your back, Maya. Always." The weight of his words settled on her like a warm blanket, and for the first time, she felt a genuine sense of reassurance. She had been through so much in her life, and yet here she was, standing with someone who didn't see her as just a maid, but as a person with potential. Maya took a deep breath, feeling something shift within her. She had spent so long questioning her worth, wondering if anyone would ever see her for who she truly was. But now, with Dominic standing there, offering her his support, she realized that she didn't have to keep doubting herself. "Thank you," Maya said, her voice filled with gratitude. "For everything." Dominic nodded, his smile warm. "You don't need to thank me. You're a strong woman, Maya, and you deserve to have a life that reflects that." As Dominic stood there, offering her more than just words, Maya felt a small spark of hope ignite inside her. She had never allowed herself to believe that she could have more, that she could be more. But in Dominic's eyes, she saw something different. A future, a chance at something bigger than herself. "I don't know what to do with all of this," Maya admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Take it one step at a time. No rush. Just live your life, Maya. That's all I'm asking." Maya nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. The future was still uncertain, and there would be obstacles to face. But in that moment, with Dominic standing beside her, she knew that she wasn't alone. And that, more than anything, was enough to give her the strength to keep moving forward. It had been 2 months since Maya had stepped into this new life, and though she still had her moments of doubt, she was slowly starting to feel like she belonged. Each day, she woke up in the same apartment, but each day also felt different. The weight of her past, the struggles, the years of being invisible, was still there, but it wasn't as heavy as before. Dominic had kept his promise. He had given her the space she needed to find herself, and while she wasn't quite sure who she was yet, she was beginning to get a glimpse of who she could be. As she sat at the small dining table in the morning, sipping her coffee, Maya reflected on how much had changed. She had begun working for Dominic in a different capacity now. She no longer just lived in his building as a maid. No, now she had a job that was hers alone, something she could do on her own terms. She was managing a small but growing team of staff at one of Dominic's properties. It wasn't a glamorous position, but it felt like hers, and that meant more than she ever thought it would. But the new role also came with new responsibilities, and sometimes, the weight of it all still left her second-guessing herself. "I can do this," Maya whispered under her breath, trying to summon the confidence she knew she had inside her. Just then, her phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Dominic. Asterisk, "How's everything going today? Call me if you need anything." Asterisk. Maya smiled at the message. It wasn't just the fact that Dominic was checking in on her. It was the fact that he trusted her to handle the work on her own. It was something she had never had before. Real responsibility, real trust. She had been so used to people doubting her, looking down on her, but Dominic was different. He saw her potential before she even saw it herself. Maya grabbed her phone and quickly typed back a reply. Asterisk, "Everything is fine. Just a little overwhelmed, but I'll manage. Thanks for checking in. Asterisk, she hit send, then took a deep breath. As much as she had learned from Dominic, the pressure to succeed still felt real. Today was one of those days when the weight of her new life felt like it was too much. She stood up and walked to the small window in her apartment, looking out over the city. The morning sun bathed the streets in soft light, and for a moment, she let herself just breathe. There was so much to learn, so much to navigate, but at least she was no longer alone. The feeling of being seen, being cared for, it made all the difference. Later that day, she found herself in the office of the building she managed. The hustle of the staff around her reminded her how much she had accomplished in such a short amount of time. She wasn't the same woman who had walked into Dominic's life 2 months ago, lost and unsure. She was still figuring it out, but now, she had a direction. As she walked to the back of the office, one of the staff members, Elena, stopped her. Maya, can we talk for a second? Elena asked, her voice unsure. Maya nodded and followed her to a quiet corner. Elena, a young woman who had worked at the building longer than Maya, looked at her with a mixture of respect and apprehension. I just wanted to say, Elena began, that we're really lucky to have you here. You've really turned things around. Maya blinked. In surprise. I haven't done anything special, she said modestly, feeling the old habit of downplaying her achievements. Elena shook her head. No, really. You don't know how much of a difference it makes to have someone who actually listens to us. You've made it better here. You've made us feel like we matter. Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest, and for a moment, the weight of the day didn't feel so heavy. It was small moments like this that reminded her how far she had come. She smiled at Elena, grateful for the unexpected praise. Thank you. That means a lot, Maya said. Elena smiled back before walking away to tend to her work. Maya stood there for a moment, taking in the words. It was one thing for Dominic to believe in her, but to have someone else, someone who had known the old way of things, say that she had made a difference, well, that was something entirely new. That evening, Maya went to bed early, exhausted from the day's work, but for the first time in a while, she didn't lie awake thinking about all the things she might have done wrong. She simply closed her eyes and let herself rest. The next morning, she woke up with a sense of calm she hadn't felt before. She still had a lot to learn, and the path ahead wasn't always clear, but one thing was certain. She was no longer invisible. She had a place here, not because of her job, but because of who she was becoming. And for the first time in her life, she was starting to believe that the future was something she could shape, something she deserved to shape. As the days passed, Maya's confidence grew. She started making decisions on her own, speaking up in meetings, and trusting herself. The small, invisible woman she had once been was slowly fading away, replaced by someone who could stand tall, face challenges head-on, and know that she was worthy of respect. And through it all, Dominic remained by her side, offering his support and wisdom when she needed it. He had given her more than just a job or a place to stay. He had given her a chance to live a life that was truly hers. Maya still didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in her life, she was okay with that. Because she knew, with Dominic's help, she would find her way. It had been 3 months since Maya's life had completely shifted. She had come to understand that the transition was not just about living in a new apartment or taking on a new job. It was about redefining who she was, shedding layers of doubt, and discovering strengths she never knew she had. The days felt different now, more vibrant, filled with possibility. She woke up in the morning with purpose, not just as a worker, but as someone who had a stake in her own future. But there were still moments of uncertainty, moments when she would question whether she truly deserved all of this. Maya sat at her desk one afternoon, reviewing reports for the building she managed. The tasks were becoming more complex, and the responsibility was starting to weigh on her. But this time, it felt different. She wasn't afraid. She was ready. As she read through the documents, her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from Dominic. Asterisk, how's everything going today? Call me if you need anything. Asterisk. Maya smiled at the message. It was always reassuring to know that Dominic was there. Despite everything she had learned, the support he provided still felt like an anchor. She had become more confident, yes, but it was his unwavering belief in her that gave her the courage to keep going. She quickly typed back, asterisk, it's going well. Just a bit busy today, but I'll manage. Thanks for checking in. Maya hit send and returned to her work, but something nagged at her. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The phone rang a few minutes later, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw Dominic's name on the screen. She quickly picked up. "Hey, Dominic," she said, trying to sound calm, though she could feel the butterflies in her stomach. "How's it going?" Dominic's voice came through the line, smooth and reassuring. "Hey, Maya. I wanted to talk to you about something important." Her heart raced at his tone. It wasn't his usual casual check-in. "Sure, what's up?" she asked, her voice steady despite the unease building inside her. "I've been thinking a lot about the progress you've made," Dominic said. "You've done incredible work, and I want to make sure you're on the right path." Maya felt her chest tighten. "I think I'm managing okay," she replied, trying to sound confident. "But if you think I need to make any changes, just let me know." Dominic was silent for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer, more deliberate. "I know you're handling things well, but I think it's time for you to take on something more. I'm offering you a bigger role, Maya." The words hit her like a wave. "A bigger role?" she repeated, stunned. "What do you mean?" "I want you to manage more of the operations for the properties." "I believe you're ready for it," Dominic said, his voice firm, yet encouraging. "You've shown the initiative and the capability. This could be your next step." Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You're serious?" she asked, her voice filled with disbelief. "I am," he replied without hesitation. "I see something in you, Maya. You've earned this opportunity." Maya leaned back in her chair, the weight of his words sinking in. She had never imagined something like this, not in her wildest dreams. She had always been so focused on survival, on getting by, that the idea of a future like this had never felt possible. "I don't know what to say," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "You don't have to say anything right now," Dominic said kindly. "I just want you to know that I believe in you. And this is your time to shine." She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the words sink in. Dominic believed in her. She wasn't sure when she started believing in herself, but in that moment, she realized she had. "I'll do it," she said finally, her voice steady with resolve. "I'll take on the role." Dominic's voice was warm with approval. "I knew you would. I'll have my assistant send over the details, and we can go over everything together. But for now, just know that I'm proud of you, Maya." A smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "Thank you, Dominic. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," he replied. "You've already proven yourself." Maya hung up the phone, feeling a rush of emotions. She wasn't just stepping into a new role. She was stepping into a new life, a life where she was no longer invisible. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. That evening, as Maya sat in her apartment, reflecting on the phone call, she realized something. She wasn't the same woman who had walked into Dominic's life months ago. She wasn't the maid who had been humiliated or the woman who had doubted her own worth. She was someone new, a woman who had taken control of her own destiny. Maya looked out the window at the city skyline, a soft smile on her face. She didn't know exactly where this path would take her, but for the first time, she was ready to find out. With Dominic by her side, and the world at her feet, she knew she was prepared for whatever came next. It had been a few weeks since Maya had accepted the new role Dominic had offered her, and though the transition was still ongoing, she could already feel the weight of the changes in her life. The role was more demanding, but she had found herself thriving. The tasks that had once seemed overwhelming now felt like challenges she was eager to tackle. Maya had spent years in the shadows, but now she was stepping into the light, and it felt like she was finally where she belonged. She spent her days managing operations, coordinating with the team, and making decisions that affected the future of the properties. It wasn't easy, and there were days when she felt completely out of her depth, but every success, no matter how small, gave her the confidence to keep going. Her relationship with Dominic remained a strong foundation beneath her feet. She had learned to trust him, and he had proven time and time again that his support was unwavering. But there was still something Maya was struggling with. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was a part of her life that was still unresolved. One evening, as she walked through the building she was now managing, Maya found herself reflecting on everything she had accomplished. The polished floors, the elegant decor, the busy staff, all of it was hers to oversee. Yet, despite the outward success, something still lingered inside her. The constant reminder of how far she had come made her question if she was truly deserving of the life she had now. Was she ready for the next step? Could she handle all that came with it? As if on cue, her phone buzzed. In her pocket, it was a message from Dominic. Asterisk. Hey, how's everything going? I was thinking about you today. Asterisk. Maya smiled at the message. The constant communication with Dominic had become a source of comfort for her. It wasn't just about the job. It was about knowing that she had someone in her corner. She quickly typed back. Asterisk. Everything is good. Just adjusting to the new responsibilities, but I'm getting there. Thanks for checking in. Asterisk. Dominic's response came quickly. Asterisk. You're doing great, Maya. I'm proud of how far you've come. But I think it's time we talk about what's next for you. Asterisk. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She had come so far, but now, it seemed like another challenge was on the horizon. She sat down on the edge of her bed and thought about what he meant. Was there more? What did Dominic see for her beyond what she was already doing? Her phone buzzed again, snapping her out of her thoughts. Asterisk. I'm coming by tomorrow. We need to discuss your next steps. Don't worry, you're ready. Asterisk. The words were reassuring, but they also filled Maya with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The idea of what came next was both exciting and terrifying. The next day, Maya was sitting at the desk in her office when Dominic walked in. He looked as confident and composed as ever, but there was a certain warmth in his eyes that made Maya feel like she wasn't just an employee, but someone he truly cared about. Hey, Dominic greeted her, giving her a reassuring smile. How's everything going today? Maya hesitated for a moment before replying. It's been good. I'm still adjusting, but I think I'm getting the hang of things. Dominic sat down across from her, leaning forward slightly. I know you are, he said with a nod. You've done more than just adjust. You've excelled. Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She still wasn't used to receiving praise like this. It felt new, almost foreign. But, Dominic continued, his tone shifting slightly. I think it's time for you to take the next step. You're ready, Maya. You've shown me, and everyone around you, that you have what it takes. Maya's heart raced. Next step? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic leaned back in his chair, his gaze unwavering. I want to offer you a new position, one that will give you more influence, more responsibility. I want you to take on a leadership role within the company. You've earned it. The words hung in the air between them. Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had been so focused on her growth in the role she had now that she hadn't even considered the possibility of moving up. You're serious? She asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Dominic nodded, his expression firm but kind. Absolutely. You've proven yourself time and time again, Maya. You have the skills, the knowledge, and the heart to do this. Maya looked down at her hands, her mind racing. She had spent years being overlooked, underestimated, and now, here she was, being offered the chance to lead. The weight of the decision was immense. Could she really do this? Could she take on even more responsibility, more pressure? I don't know, Maya admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. It's a big step. I've never been in a position like this before. Dominic leaned forward again, his gaze softening. I understand, but I'm confident that you can handle it. And you don't have to do it alone. You have a team behind you, and I'll always be here to support you. Maya took a deep breath, looking at Dominic, and for the first time in a long time, she felt sure. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by something stronger, belief. She could do this. Okay, she said, her voice steady now. I'll take the next step. Dominic smiled, his pride evident in his eyes. I knew you would. Let's get started, Maya. This is your time. As he left the office, Maya sat back in her chair, letting the weight of the decision settle in. She wasn't the same person who had walked into this world months ago. She was someone new, someone who could rise to any challenge, someone who was ready for whatever came next. The weeks that followed Maya's decision to take the next step in her career were a whirlwind of new challenges and unexpected moments of growth. She threw herself into her new role, managing even more responsibilities than before. Every day was a balancing act, but she had learned to embrace the pressure, using it to push herself further. The fear of failure was still there, lurking in the background, but it was now overshadowed by something stronger, confidence. She had come so far in such a short amount of time, and each small victory, whether it was solving a problem or making a key decision, reminded her of how much she had changed. Her relationship with Dominic had evolved as well. He had been right there beside her, not just as her employer, but as a mentor and a friend. His belief in her had never wavered, and it had become a driving force for her. They would meet regularly, discussing everything from work to personal goals, and with every conversation, Maya felt herself becoming more sure of who she was and what she wanted. But despite all the progress, there were days when the weight of everything still felt overwhelming. She found herself questioning whether she was truly capable of handling the responsibilities that came with the role she had taken on. One of those days arrived unexpectedly. Maya had just wrapped up a long meeting with the team when she received an urgent email from one of the property managers. The issue seemed simple at first, but as she dove into the details, she realized it was far more complicated than she had anticipated. The stress of the situation began to build as the hours passed. She was on the phone with contractors, her team, and legal advisors, trying to fix a problem that had the potential to affect the company's reputation. As the day turned into night, Maya's exhaustion began to set in. She looked at the clock and realized it was past 9 p.m. The building was quiet now, with most of the staff having left for the day. But Maya remained, sitting in her office, surrounded by documents and reports. Her mind was racing. She was running on empty, but she couldn't afford to stop. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Dominic. Asterisk, how's it going? You've been working late again. Asterisk, Maya sighed, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She knew Dominic was just trying to check in, but the truth was, she felt like she was drowning. She quickly typed back, asterisk, I'm fine. Just dealing with a few things. I'll be okay. Asterisk, Dominic's response came almost immediately. Asterisk, don't burn yourself out. Take a break. Let me know if you need anything. Asterisk, Maya stared at the message for a moment. She appreciated the concern, but a part of her felt like she couldn't let herself stop. She had to prove that she was capable of handling it all. Still, Dominic's words lingered in her mind. Don't burn yourself out. She closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair, taking a deep breath. Maybe he was right. Maybe she needed to step back for a moment. As she sat there, letting the stillness of the office settle around her, Maya realized something important. She had spent so much of her life trying to prove herself to others, trying to show that she was worthy of being seen, that she had forgotten to take care of herself. She had spent years being invisible, and now that she had the chance to be seen, she had to remember that she was allowed to take a breath. The next day, Maya woke up early, feeling a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. She had decided to take a day off, something she hadn't done in months. She sent a quick message to Dominic, letting him know she would be stepping away for the day. To her surprise, he was fully supportive. Asterisk, take the time you need. You've earned it. Asterisk, Maya smiled at his response. It felt like a small victory in itself, being allowed to rest. She spent the day at home, doing things she hadn't allowed herself to do in a long time. She read a book, took a long walk through the city, and simply enjoyed the quiet. It was a day that reminded her of the importance of balance. That evening, when she returned to the office, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead, but now she understood the value of stepping back and recharging. The pressure hadn't gone away, but she had learned that she didn't have to carry it all on her own. She had people in her life, people like Dominic, who believed in her, who supported her, and who reminded her that taking care of herself was just as important as the work she did. As the days passed, Maya continued to grow in her new role. She faced setbacks, made mistakes, and learned from each experience. But she no longer saw herself as someone who had to prove her worth constantly. She was enough, just as she was. And with Dominic by her side, helping her navigate the complexities of her new life, Maya felt ready for whatever came next. She had found her place in the world, and for the first time in her life, she was truly living for herself. It had been several months since Maya had taken on the new role, and with each passing day, she found herself becoming more and more immersed in her responsibilities. The weight of her new position was heavy, but it was a weight she had grown accustomed to carrying. She had built something for herself, something she could be proud of. Her confidence had grown, and while there were still moments of self-doubt, she was learning how to navigate them. One evening, as she sat at her desk in the office, reviewing contracts and looking over the reports for the week, Maya's phone buzzed. It was a message from Dominic. Asterisk, how's everything going? Need a break? Asterisk, Maya smiled at the message. She had grown used to their regular check-ins, and Dominic's support had been a constant through all the changes. She quickly typed back, asterisk, everything's going well. A bit of a busy day, but I'm managing. Thanks for checking in. Asterisk Dominic replied almost instantly, asterisk, good to hear. I know how hard you've been working. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Asterisk Maya sat back in her chair and sighed, letting the words sink in. Dominic's reminders to take care of herself had become a familiar comfort. It was easy to get lost in the work, to keep pushing forward without stopping. But he was right. She had to take care of herself too. That evening, after closing up her work for the day, Maya decided to take a break, something she hadn't done in a while. She grabbed her coat and headed out, walking through the quiet streets of the city. The crisp evening air felt refreshing against her skin, and for the first time in a while, she allowed herself to truly relax. She didn't have to think about work or responsibilities. For that brief moment, she was simply Maya, walking through the city as she had always dreamed of doing, free. As she walked through the park, her mind wandered. She thought about how far she had come, how much had changed in such a short time. It was hard to believe that. Not too long ago, she had been unsure of herself, unsure of what she could achieve. But now, she was stepping into her own power. She was no longer just a maid or a person who had to hide in the background. She was a leader, someone who had earned her place and was ready to take on whatever came next. As she walked, Maya thought about the future. She didn't know exactly what it would hold, but she felt more prepared than ever. She had learned so much about herself, about her own strength. She had found her voice, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she could truly shape her own destiny. A few days later, Maya found herself sitting across from Dominic in one of the city's most prestigious restaurants. It had become a sort of tradition for them to meet regularly to discuss work and other matters. This time, though, there was a different energy in the air. They had both worked hard to get to this point, and as they sat together, it felt like they were reflecting on their shared journey. You've really come a long way, Maya, Dominic said, his voice filled with admiration. I'm proud of everything you've accomplished. Maya smiled, grateful for his words. She had always appreciated his support, but today, it felt different. I couldn't have done it without your guidance, she replied. Dominic nodded, his gaze softening. You've done it all yourself. I've just been here to help you recognize your potential. Maya felt a warmth in her chest at his words. It was true, she had done the hard work. But Dominic's belief in her had given her the confidence to take those first steps, to push through the fear and uncertainty. I still have a lot to learn, Maya admitted. There are days when I feel like I'm not ready for everything that's coming. Dominic leaned forward, his expression serious but encouraging. You'll never be fully ready, Maya. There will always be challenges, but that's part of the journey. What matters is that you keep moving forward, even when things feel uncertain. You've already proven that you can handle anything. His words struck a chord deep inside her. Maya had spent so long feeling like she wasn't enough, like she was always trying to catch up. But now, with Dominic's words echoing in her mind, she understood something important. Being ready wasn't about having everything figured out. It was about having the courage to face whatever came next. As the evening continued, they discussed the future of the company and Maya's next steps. She felt more confident than ever in her ability to lead, to continue building something meaningful. The next day, she went into the office with a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer just managing properties. She was shaping the direction of the company, making decisions that would have an impact for years to come. And for the first time, she realized that the future wasn't something that happened to her. It was something she could create. As the days passed, Maya continued to grow into her role, her confidence expanding with each new responsibility. There were still moments of doubt, of course, but now she had the tools to face them. And with Dominic's continued support, she knew that whatever came next, she was ready for it. The path ahead was hers to define, and for the first time in her life, Maya felt truly in control of her own destiny. The days continued to pass, each one blending into the next, and Maya found herself slowly becoming more comfortable in her new role. Her confidence, once fragile and uncertain, was now solidifying into something she could rely on. She had earned her place, and she wasn't about to let anyone, including herself, take that away. But even as she embraced her success, there were moments that reminded her of how far she had come. It was a Tuesday morning when she found herself standing in the lobby of one of the properties she managed, looking at the large glass doors and watching the world outside pass by. She had been with Dominic for months now, working side by side, building something she could be proud of. She thought back to those first days when everything felt like an impossible task. The doubts, the insecurities, the fear of failure. It all seemed so distant now. But even with all the progress, there were still moments of vulnerability. She hadn't fully shaken the feeling that she was still trying to prove herself, trying to prove she was worthy of all the changes in her life. As she stepped forward into the lobby, one of the new staff members, Natalie, approached her. With a hesitant look on her face, "Maya," Natalie began, clearly unsure of how to address her. "There's something I wanted to bring up." Maya smiled warmly, trying to put her at ease. "What's on your mind?" she asked. "Well," Natalie hesitated, "I just wanted to say that I really admire how you've handled everything. I know we've only been working together for a short time, but the way you lead and the way you make decisions, it's inspiring." Maya blinked in surprise. She had never expected someone to look up to her in that way. "Thank you," Maya said, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "I'm still figuring it all out, but I appreciate hearing that." Natalie looked a bit more comfortable now, though there was still an underlying sense of respect in her expression. "It's just, I've worked for a lot of people in my life, but it's different with you. You make us feel like we're all part of something important. It's not just about the job, it's about the people." Maya was taken aback. She hadn't realized the impact she had made on the team. She had always focused on getting the job done, keeping everything running smoothly, but hearing this reminded her of something important. Leadership wasn't just about results. It was about the people you were leading, too. "I'm glad to hear that," Maya said, feeling a surge of pride. "I truly believe that we all play a part in making this work. It's not just me, it's all of us." Natalie smiled, clearly appreciative of Maya's words. "Well, you make it look easy," she said with a laugh. "Thank you for being such an amazing boss." Maya watched her walk away, a sense of warmth spreading through her. It wasn't the first time someone had said something like this to her, but it was the first time it had truly sunk in. She wasn't just the person in charge, she was a part of something bigger. She was helping to create an environment where people felt valued, where they could thrive. The realization settled deeply within her. For so long, she had been invisible, but now she was someone people looked up to, someone who could make a difference. As Maya continued with her day, she felt a new sense of purpose. She was no longer just managing properties. She was managing a team, a group of individuals who relied on her leadership and support. And that felt like the true measure of her success. Later that afternoon, as the office began to quiet down, Maya received a call from Dominic. She smiled as she saw his name on the screen. "Hey, Dominic," she said, answering the phone. "How's it going?" "Hey, Maya," he replied, his voice calm and steady as usual. "I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I've been hearing great things about how you're handling everything." Maya felt her heart swell at the praise. "Thanks, Dominic," she said, her voice warm. "It's been a lot of work, but I'm getting the hang of it. I'm starting to feel like I really belong here." "You always belonged," he replied, his tone sincere. "You just had to see it for yourself. I'm proud of you, Maya." Maya could feel the weight of his words, and it filled her with a deep sense of gratitude. She had come so far, and she knew she owed a part of that to Dominic's unwavering belief in her. "I don't think I would have made it this far without your support," Maya said honestly. "I mean that." Dominic's voice softened. "I didn't do it for you, Maya. You did it for yourself. You've proven time and time again that you're more than capable." Maya smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. She wasn't perfect. She had made mistakes, and there would be more challenges ahead, but she was no longer the woman who doubted herself. She was someone who could face whatever came next. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. "For everything." "You don't have to thank me," Dominic replied. "You're the one who earned it." As the conversation ended, Maya leaned back in her chair and allowed herself a moment of reflection. She was no longer just surviving. She was thriving. The fear that once held her back had been replaced by confidence, and the uncertainty that clouded her future had given way to clarity. Maya had found her place, and it wasn't just in the office or in her role. It was in herself. And with Dominic's guidance, she knew that whatever came next, she was ready for it. Months passed, and Maya continued to settle into her role, her confidence becoming an integral part of her daily life. The fear that once held her back now felt like a distant memory. She had grown into her position and had earned the respect of her team. They were no longer just employees under her watch. They were colleagues, working together toward a common goal. Maya had proven to herself and everyone around her that she was capable of leading and thriving in a world that had once felt out of reach. One morning, as she walked into the office, she noticed something unusual. There was a subtle shift in the atmosphere. People seemed to be a little more focused, a little more engaged. She wasn't sure what it was at first, but as the day went on, she realized that her team was taking initiative. They were communicating more, stepping up to take on challenges without hesitation, and offering solutions before she even had to ask. It was as if her own confidence had started to spread, inspiring those around her. Maya sat at her desk, watching her team interact, and a small smile crept onto her face. She had created an environment where everyone felt empowered, where they could trust their abilities and each other. It was something she had always wanted, but it was only now that she saw how much it had come to life. She received a message from Dominic later that morning. Asterisk, I've been hearing great things about how you've been managing things. You've really made a difference. Asterisk. Maya smiled at the message, grateful for his constant support. She quickly typed a reply. Asterisk, thanks, Dominic. I couldn't have done it without your guidance. Things are really starting to come together. Asterisk. Dominic's response was quick as always. Asterisk, you've done the hard work. It's all you, Maya. Asterisk. It felt good to hear that, and Maya allowed herself a moment to reflect. She wasn't just managing properties anymore. She was shaping an entire company, fostering an atmosphere of growth and collaboration. She had come a long way from the woman who had been afraid to speak up, afraid to make decisions. The transformation wasn't just in her career, it was in how she viewed herself. The person she had been before, the invisible woman who kept her head down, was gone. In her place was someone who could stand tall, someone who had a voice that could be heard, someone who could lead. That evening, after a long day of meetings and overseeing the operations, Maya found herself walking through the city once again, the cool air brushing against her skin. It had become a ritual for her, a way to clear her mind after a busy day. As she walked through the streets, she realized how much the city had become a part of her story. The lights, the hustle and bustle, the quiet corners where she could think. All of it was now her world. She had created this life. As she passed a coffee shop, she thought about how much she had changed. A few years ago, she would have never imagined herself standing here, in this position, feeling this sense of peace. She had been so focused on surviving, on getting by, that she hadn't stopped to appreciate how far she had come. But now, with every step, she could feel the weight of her accomplishments. It was a beautiful feeling, gratitude for the journey and pride in how far she had traveled. When she returned to her apartment, Maya sat down with a cup of tea and thought about the future. She had built a life that was hers. She was no longer just someone working to survive. She was thriving. But as she sat there, her thoughts wandered to Dominic. He had been more than just a mentor to her. He had been a constant source of strength. His belief in her had changed everything. Maya had always doubted herself, always wondered if she could handle the responsibilities life threw at her. But Dominic had shown her that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. She looked at the message he had sent earlier in the day and smiled. He was right. It was all her now. She had earned this. The phone buzzed again, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Dominic. Asterisk, I know you're doing well, but I wanted to remind you that I'm here if you ever need anything. You've come a long way, Maya, and I'm proud of you. Asterisk. Maya smiled as she read the message. She didn't need him to tell her she was doing well, but the words were a reminder of the journey they had taken together. He had given her the confidence to take charge of her life, and now she was in control of her own destiny. It was a strange, comforting feeling. She wasn't waiting for someone to tell her what to do anymore. She was making her own decisions, leading her own path. She took a deep breath and looked out the window, feeling the weight of the city and her accomplishments all at once. She was ready for whatever came next. The future wasn't just something that happened to her. It was something she would create. As the days passed, Maya continued to grow into her role, taking on new challenges and overcoming the obstacles that came her way. Each decision she made, each step she took, added another layer to the foundation she had built. She wasn't just managing a company. She was shaping its future, and in doing so, shaping her own future as well. She was a leader, and she was ready for whatever the world had in store for her. It had been a few more months since Maya had taken the reins of her new role, and the progress she had made was undeniable. Every day felt like an opportunity to refine her leadership, to grow further, to shape the direction of the company. It wasn't always easy, but it was hers. Every decision she made now came with a sense of certainty. She no longer questioned her abilities the way she once did. The challenges that came with the job were simply another step in her evolution, and with every obstacle she faced, her confidence grew. She had transformed from a quiet, uncertain woman into a force to be reckoned with. But there were still moments when doubt crept in, like when she was faced with a particularly tough decision or a crisis at work. Those moments, though less frequent, reminded her of the journey she had taken. It was one thing to manage a team, to ensure everything ran smoothly. It was another to make decisions that could change the course of the company, decisions that affected not only the business but the people who depended on it. She thought back to the times when she had been unsure, when she had feared failure. Now, those moments were fewer and farther between. The more she led, the more she realized that success wasn't about avoiding mistakes. It was about learning from them and moving forward. That was something she had learned from Dominic, something that had stuck with her. Dominic. His influence in her life had been a game changer. From the very beginning, he had seen potential in her that she hadn't even recognized herself. His guidance had been more than just professional, it had been personal. He had shown her that she was capable of more than she ever imagined. And it wasn't just about business. It was about belief, believing in herself, believing in her ability to change the trajectory of her life. Maya had come to rely on Dominic's support. They had become more than just employer and employee. They had become friends, partners in growth. It wasn't uncommon for them to meet outside of work to discuss their personal goals, their future plans. And as they sat down over coffee one afternoon, Maya couldn't help but reflect on everything she had achieved. "I don't think I could have done any of this without you," Maya said, her voice sincere. Dominic smiled, but there was something in his expression that told her he wasn't just proud of her achievements. He was proud of her as a person. "I just gave you the opportunity, Maya. You did the rest. You believed in yourself, and that's the most important thing." She nodded, feeling the truth of his words resonate deep within her. She had believed in herself more and more with each passing day. The past was no longer a weight she carried. It was a reminder of how far she had come. And the future? Well, it was something she was ready to face with confidence and strength. "But you know," Dominic continued, "there's still a lot of work ahead. The bigger challenges are yet to come." Maya took a deep breath, the challenge in his words not lost on her. "I'm ready," she said firmly. "I'm ready for whatever comes next." Over the next few weeks, Maya's new level of responsibility truly began to show. She was managing several projects at once, overseeing the operations of multiple properties, and making critical decisions that would have far-reaching consequences. The pace was relentless, but she thrived in it. She was no longer overwhelmed by the weight of the work. Instead, she approached it with clarity and focus. It wasn't without its struggles, of course. There were still moments when she questioned her choices, when the weight of her decisions seemed almost too much to bear. But even in those moments, she had learned to pause, to breathe, and to trust in herself. She wasn't perfect, but she didn't need to be. As long as she kept moving forward, learning, and growing, that was enough. Then, one day, while she was in the middle of an intense meeting discussing new business strategies, one of her team members approached her with some unexpected news. It was a phone call that would change the course of the company. The news was about a new potential partnership with another firm, one that could take the company's success to new heights. Maya felt the excitement ripple through the room as they discussed the possibilities. But even as the team celebrated, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this partnership would require even more from her, more than just managing day-to-day operations, more than just making decisions. It was a test of everything she had learned and everything she had become. As she sat back, listening to the ideas bouncing around the room, she realized something important. She had come full circle. She had started as someone unsure of her own worth, someone who had to prove herself at every turn. And now, she was the one leading the charge, the one shaping the company's future. The future. It was no longer something she feared. It was something she embraced. In the weeks that followed, the partnership materialized. It brought new opportunities, new challenges, and new people into the fold. Maya stepped into this new chapter with grace and confidence, taking on the responsibilities with the same determination she had shown from the very beginning. She wasn't just managing anymore. She was leading, creating, and leaving a legacy that would define the future of the company for years to come. And as she stood at the helm, guiding her team through this new venture, she knew that whatever came next, she was more than ready. She had proven to herself, and to everyone around her, that she was more than capable. She had built this life, and with each passing day, she continued to build her future.